You might think this Swedish defenseman was always seen as a can't-miss star, but the truth is, Rasmus Dahlin was once doubted for the very thing that makes him special today, his flash. From the start, Dahlin played with flair most defensemen don't dare to show. Quick moves, fearless passes, and the confidence to carry the puck coast to coast like a forward trapped in a defenseman's body. But that same boldness raised questions. Was he too risky? Too flashy to trust in big moments? Even as the first overall pick, some weren't convinced he'd live up to the hype. Scouts praised his raw tools, but quietly worried about his habits. Could he really lead a defense corps in the NHL, or was he just a highlight reel waiting to make a costly turnover? Back in Sweden, he was used to creating space on his own terms, but in the NHL, the ice is tighter and mistakes are magnified. Some doubters said he'd get exposed, that once the game sped up, the flash would fade. Yet instead of changing who he was, Dahlin doubled down. He didn't play it safe, he got smarter. He sharpened his instincts, refined his reads, and started using his creativity with purpose. He studied film. He learned how to slow the game down even when the pressure ramped up. And through that process, he didn't just survive, he started to lead. One game at a time, he earned respect. He became the guy Buffalo leaned on night after night. The same kid who once got benched for taking chances, now he was setting the tone for an entire franchise. So how did this bold teenager from Trollhättan become the face of the Sabres' future? Well, before we dive into his rise, just a quick note. These videos take a ton of research and editing to put together, so if you're enjoying the story so far, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. Now let's rewind to where it all started. To answer that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Rasmus Dahlin grew up in the small town of Trollhättan, Sweden, a quiet place where winters were long, and hockey wasn't just a game, it was a way of life. The local rinks were always full, and frozen ponds turned into battlegrounds for neighborhood bragging rights. But for the Dahlin family, the most important rink wasn't in a big arena. It was right outside their home. Every winter, his father Martin would flood the backyard and build a small sheet of ice. It wasn't fancy. No boards, no scoreboard, just a flat patch of frozen ground. But for young Rasmus, it might as well have been Madison Square Garden. That backyard rink became his world. He'd lace up his skates before school, skate again after dinner, and stay out until his fingers were numb, practicing moves under the dim glow of backyard floodlights. Even as a little kid, Rasmus wasn't obsessed with scoring goals like most kids his age. What fascinated him was the pass, the way the puck could glide across the ice, bend off the boards, or slip through tight windows. He'd spend hours experimenting, off the glass passes, behind the net setups, and no-look feeds. Not to show off, but because it was fun. It felt right. His dad had played hockey too, but he never pressured Rasmus to take it seriously. There were no tough talks or drills after dinner, just encouragement. His only rule, enjoy the game. That freedom helped Rasmus play without fear, without limits, and with full creativity. Coaches picked up on it fast. He wasn't the biggest kid, he wasn't the fastest, but he read the game like a pro. At 7 or 8 years old, while others were chasing the puck in a swarm, Dahlin was directing play like a general on the ice. By the time he reached his early teens, it was obvious. He wasn't just gifted, he was different. A defenseman who thought like a playmaker. Someone building his game on vision, timing, and the kind of poise you can't teach. By the time Rasmus Dahlin was a teenager, he wasn't just turning heads in Sweden, he was catching the attention of the entire hockey world. At 17 years old, he made Sweden's roster for the World Junior Championship. Most players at that tournament are 18 or 19, already drafted, and often playing against men in top-level leagues. But Dahlin, he was still in high school, and already stealing the spotlight from future NHLers. He wasn't just surviving out there, he was dominating shifts against older, stronger players. He skated past forecheckers like they weren't even there. He danced through the neutral zone with ease. He'd stop on a dime, shift the puck through traffic, and send crisp, no-look passes across the ice right onto a teammate's stick. He looked like a chess master playing against amateurs, always 3 moves ahead. Broadcasters couldn't stop talking about him. Scouts couldn't stop taking notes. What they were seeing didn't match his age. Calm under pressure, flawless positioning, quick decision-making. He had the vision of a top-line center but the defensive instincts of a seasoned blue liner. He wasn't flashy just for the sake of it. He had purpose behind every play. People began calling him the next Erik Karlsson for his skating and creativity. Some even compared his poise and puck control to Nicklas Lidström. And while both comparisons seemed bold at the time, there was a reason they stuck. What made Dahlin different was how he combined 2 things that rarely exist in the same player. The mind of a veteran and the confidence of a fearless teenager. But not everyone saw it that way. Some old school coaches and analysts didn't love the risks he took. They thought he was too fancy, too bold, too loose with the puck. They wanted him to play safe defense, to chip it out, block shots, stay back. To them, Dahlin looked like a highlight reel waiting to make a costly mistake. But that wasn't how he saw the game. Dahlin wasn't being careless. He saw passing lanes most players didn't. He anticipated openings before they happened. And yes, sometimes that meant trying something creative, but to him that was just smart hockey. Still, the criticism didn't slow him down. In fact, it fueled him. In 2018, at 17 years old, Rasmus Dahlin became the youngest player on Sweden's Winter Olympics hockey team. He wasn't brought in for a development role. He was trusted to contribute at the highest level of international hockey. No juniors, no slow introduction, straight to the biggest stage in the world. And he belonged. By the time the NHL draft arrived that summer, the hype surrounding Dahlin had reached full-blown frenzy. Every scout, every analyst, every hockey podcast knew exactly who was going number one. It wasn't a debate, it was a countdown. He was called a franchise changer, a generational talent, a defenseman who could shift the direction of an entire organization. And the Buffalo Sabres held that first pick. They weren't just picking a player, they were making a bet on their future. After missing the playoffs 7 straight years, Buffalo was desperate for something real, a leader, a star, a reason for fans to believe again. When the Sabres called his name, the pressure landed instantly. He was compared immediately to legends. Nicklas Lidstrom, Victor Hedman. People said he had the poise of Lidstrom with the offensive spark of Hedman. The hockey world didn't see Dahlin as a project. They saw him as a savior. And that's a lot to place on a teenager just arriving in a new country, adjusting to a new culture, new teammates, and a struggling franchise desperate to climb out of the basement. Buffalo embraced him from day one. Fans filled the arena just to see glimpses of what he might become. Jerseys with his name flew off the shelves. Local media called him the cornerstone of the rebuild. He hadn't even played an NHL game, but the weight of the franchise was already on his shoulders. Then came opening night, and the welcome to reality. The NHL was a different beast. It wasn't just faster, it was relentless. Opposing teams went right after him. They knew he liked to skate with the puck, so they pressured him hard. They knew he wanted to make that extra move, so they clogged the passing lanes. And when he made a mistake, it didn't go unnoticed. It ended up on the scoreboard. Dahlin still showed flashes of brilliance, but the mistakes stood out more. He got caught up ice. He made risky passes under pressure. Plays he used to pull off in Sweden now came with a price. Coaches shortened his shifts. Late in tight games, he sometimes found himself watching from the bench. Critics started to talk. Was he rushed into the league too soon? Was the hype too big? Had Buffalo put too much pressure on a kid still learning how to be a pro? There were quiet nights. Nights when he didn't register a point. Nights when he got beat in front of the net. Nights when the crowd was silent and the headlines weren't glowing. And through all of it, Dahlin kept quiet. He didn't complain. He didn't blame. But behind the scenes, the pressure was there. There were moments, private moments, where he started to wonder, had he let people down? Was he really built for this? Buffalo started asking the hard question too. What if this wasn't the guy? What if the player they believed would lead them out of the dark just wasn't ready? Something changed in Rasmus Dahlin. After the early struggles, the pressure, the doubt, he didn't fall apart. Instead of letting it break him, he used it. He started listening, not to the outside noise or critics, but to the people who actually mattered. His coaches, his teammates, the veterans in the room who'd been through it all. Behind the scenes, Dahlin became a sponge. He soaked up everything, every bit of advice, every detail from video sessions, every comment from the coaching staff that could help him improve. He started asking questions. He stayed back after practices. He wasn't just showing up anymore, he was locked in. And slowly, he began to understand what it really meant to lead, not just as a star, but as someone who made everyone around him better. Guys like Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons, players who had seen years of losing in Buffalo, helped guide him. They didn't sugarcoat anything. They showed him what real accountability looked like. The coaching staff began to push him harder, not because they doubted him, but because they believed in what he could become. And Dahlin responded. One of the biggest steps he took was learning from his own mistakes. Instead of brushing off a bad game, he studied it. He rewatched his shifts, paused the video, rewound the plays, not to beat himself up, but to truly understand why things went wrong. He started to see how one bad angle could give up a scoring chance, how one late decision could cost the team momentum. That level of awareness changed everything. And it wasn't just mental. Physically, he started to transform. He added strength, built up his core, and became harder to move. The kid who used to get bullied in the corners, now he was the one throwing the weight around. He held his own in net front battles. He lifted sticks, broke up passes, and turned defense into offense in seconds. But what made it all work was that he never lost himself. Dahlin didn't abandon the style that made him special. He just learned how to use it with control. He picked his spots. He waited for the right moments. That same flash, the spin moves, the stretch passes, the sudden bursts of speed, they were all still there. But now they had purpose. And the results started showing. His ice time went up. Coaches trusted him in all situations. His plus-minus started to swing in the right direction. Turnovers went down, points went up, and the people who once questioned his future, they were now calling him one of the most complete young defensemen in the entire NHL. Rasmus Dahlin wasn't just staying afloat anymore, he was leading, and Buffalo was finally starting to feel the impact of the player they'd always believed he could become. In 2022, something big happened. Rasmus Dahlin was named an assistant captain of the Buffalo Sabres. It might seem like a small letter stitched onto a jersey, but to those who know hockey, it meant everything. That A wasn't just about seniority or stats. It was a message from the team, from the coaches, and from the organization. It said, "We believe in you. You've earned this." For a player who once carried the label of being too risky, it marked a full circle moment. He wasn't just a talented young player anymore. He was a leader, the guy teammates looked to in key moments. The one who led by example, with work ethic, intensity, and consistency, not just flash. Night after night, Dahlin stepped onto the ice and took on every role Buffalo needed. He logged massive minutes, sometimes over 25 a game. He was everywhere, quarterbacking the power play, clearing pucks on the penalty kill, shutting down top forwards, Adam Chalber, and breaking out the puck with calm precision. He wasn't just playing defense anymore. He was controlling the game when the Sabres needed to kill the momentum of an opponent's run. Dahlin went over the boards when they needed a spark. He delivered with a perfect stretch pass, a zone exit, or a burst through the middle. His fingerprints were on every shift, and more importantly, his presence settled things down. Inside the locker room, that leadership didn't go unnoticed. Even veterans began to lean on him. Coaches trusted him with the hardest assignments. Teammates praised his dedication. You'd hear things like, "He's always the first on the ice. He watches film. He's always focused." He didn't need to shout to inspire people. He just showed up every single day with purpose. That quiet leadership spoke louder than any speech. And outside the room, fans were beginning to fall in love with him all over again. But this time, it wasn't just for the end-to-end rushes or flashy highlight reel moments. It was for the grit, the fire, the loyalty. He fought for pucks in the corners. He stood up for teammates when things got heated. He back-checked with urgency and never took a shift off. Young fans started wearing his jersey again, not just because he was flashy, but because he was Buffalo tough. He represented everything the city loved about its team. Hard work, heart, and a little edge. And around the league, people started to notice. Analysts who once questioned his decision-making were now calling him one of the most balanced, well-rounded defensemen in the game. He was making all-star appearances. He was climbing up power rankings. His name started to come up in Norris Trophy conversations. People weren't just watching him, they were respecting him. The Sabres, after years of rebuilding, finally had something solid, a foundation, a heartbeat. Rasmus Dahlin wasn't just a good defenseman, he was the defenseman. The guy everything else was built around, the one who set the tone from puck drop to final whistle. And the best part? He still hasn't peaked, he's just entering his prime. Still growing, still improving, still finding new ways to elevate his game. What once made people nervous, his creativity, his risks, his confidence, is now what sets him apart. Because now it's refined, it's matured, it works. Rasmus Dahlin wasn't always the safe bet. For a long time, people questioned if he could really become that guy, but he didn't let the doubt define him. He kept working, he found balance, he figured out how to lead in his own way, and he did it all without losing the spark that made him special. Now when the game's on the line, it's Dahlin the team looks to. He's the one carrying the puck, he's the one directing traffic, he's the one wearing that letter with pride, because he earned it. Buffalo doesn't just have a good defenseman anymore, they have a cornerstone, a backbone, a leader, and the most exciting part, he's still just getting started. So what do you think? Does Rasmus Dahlin deserve to be mentioned with the best defenseman in the league? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And now Rasmus Dahlin isn't just a rising star, he's the heartbeat of Buffalo. The kid once called too risky has become the leader everyone counts on. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. These videos take countless hours of research, writing, and editing, and your support means the world. And if you're still in the mood for hockey greatness, click the video on your screen to watch 10 things you didn't know about Guy Lafleur. It's already live on the channel, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.